ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Bissau and 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink, coming to you live on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and broadcasting online at wadr.org. First, our top stories. Major General Hota Nantaha declared new head of state of Guinea-Bissau amid call by opposition PAIGC for protest. President Tinubu declares national security emergency in Nigeria. In Togo, tensions mount over unresolved alleged harassment of popular activist Kumai.
In this case, the gendarmerie is one of the key players. An independent investigation is essential to shed light on what happened.
And Liberia's Senate and House simultaneously commenced 2026 budget hearings.
We are confident, based on our current performance trajectory and the reforms we are implementing, that we will meet and hopefully surpass our 2025 domestic revenue target.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin with the latest development in Guinea-Bissau, where Major General Hota Nantaha has been declared the new head of state of Guinea-Bissau following a takeover announced by the Armed Forces High Command in Bissau on Wednesday. The military announced a suspension of the constitution, halting of activities of all state institutions, the closure of land, air and sea borders, as well as the imposition of a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew. Election results were supposed to be announced today. Well, let's join Francis Boniface, who is live in Bissau for an update. Hello, Francis.
Hello, Imo.
Yes, what is the story we're hearing that there is a new head of state declared?
Yeah, a new head of state, Major General Hota Nantaha. He is actually one of the men that appeared in the video of that announced the coup yesterday. Very little is known about him. He just addressed the country. He didn't say a lot. If I may quote him, I've just been appointed to lead the High Command. It was not a very long statement per se, but he has just been appointed to head the military government.
What is the state, and do we know the whereabouts of the outgone president Embalo and the opposition leader?
For now, nothing is really clear in terms of Embalo. We can't really confirm where exactly he is at the moment. In terms of the atmosphere in Bissau, we could say that the streets are almost deserted. There is hardly anybody on the streets. The famous blue Mercedes taxis of Bissau are all at a standstill. The streets are empty, and I think everybody was just trying to find out who is going to be the leader and what's the way forward.
We understand that just as you are also there, the likes of Jonathan, former Nigeria's President Jonathan, and the Elders Forum are still all trapped in Bissau. What is the situation there? And we also understand that there's supposed to be some discussion with the military.
Yeah, definitely there are some discussions ongoing with the military, like you cited, the West African Elders Forum, the African Union. Don't forget the African Union delegation is still here. The mission chief is still here, the former Mozambican president, Felipe Nyusi. We still have the ECOWAS mission still here, observation mission still available. So all the top dignitaries are still available. So definitely conversations are ongoing, but we do not have any clarity yet on what is going to happen really soon.
Indeed. Francis, thank you so much for your time, and do stay safe.
Thank you.
That was Armand Francis Boniface live in Bissau. Well, staying in Guinea-Bissau, the opposition party PAIGC, excluded from the recent electoral process, has called for a nationwide protest against the military takeover. But as of now, no demonstrations have actually taken place, with supporters yet to gather. Our team in Bissau reports that regional bodies, including the African Union, ECOWAS, and the Council of Elders, are continuing dialogue with the military in hopes of finding a political breakthrough. Observers from AU and ECOWAS remain on the ground as safety and security concerns persist. The opposition may change potential protest locations due to a heightened presence of police and soldiers. Meanwhile, there are reports announced that the internet since last night has been partially blocked. We'll keep monitoring the developments in Guinea-Bissau as the situation evolves. Well, reactions are already coming in as the Economic and Community of West African State ECOWAS, the African Union, and the Lusophone Network observation missions have voiced concern over the announcement of a coup while the nation awaited election result. These missions emphasized the importance of upholding democratic processes. In addition, ECOWAS and the AU expressed disappointment, particularly over the detention of senior officials responsible for overseeing the elections. They urged the people of Guinea-Bissau to stay calm and maintain peace during this critical time. On the other hand, Frederick Kwadi Ndeki, program director at the West Africa Public Policy Institute, highlighted that Guinea-Bissau requires an institutional overhaul to ensure democracy can effectively flourish.
The country needs to go further in terms of dealing with situations like this, because the objective should be for a country like Guinea-Bissau not to come back again in a situation of political instability or disorder like this one happening now. So reforms seriously should be led and engage with the country's leadership and citizenry in an inclusive process of dialogue, and to really be in a constructive and inclusive approach in terms of how they will define the reforms necessary for the country. And this should be eventually finalized in a national constitution which is really fit to the context, because this one they're having now is proving not adapted to the context of the country. And I think this is where ECOWAS and other regional or international institutions can really play a role to help this country. Not limit themselves in making declarations over elections, also taking sanctions when coups like this one happen in the country. They should go further, find a way to engage proactively and seriously and lead the country to these reforms that are necessary in terms of rule of law, politics, and all this, so that the country can really come back on good track for its development.
Frederick Kwadi Ndeki is the program director at the West Africa Public Policy Institute. Now, Ghana strongly condemned the military takeover in Guinea-Bissau, describing it as an unconstitutional assault on democracy. In a statement released on Wednesday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs said Ghana is profoundly concerned about the military takeover, which erupted just days after Guinea-Bissau held peaceful presidential and legislative elections on November 23. The ministry is urging the swift restoration of constitutional rule. From Accra, Nadi Detete reports.
The government of Ghana has issued a firm statement denouncing the coup d'etat carried out by elements of the military in Guinea-Bissau. The Foreign Affairs Ministry says the action disrupts the democratic process and undermines the will of the people who voted in presidential and legislative elections on November 23. The statement further expresses deep concern over the attempted overthrow, warning that it dangerously derails the country's democratic trajectory and obstructs the anticipated release of results scheduled for November 27. Ghana is calling for immediate reinstatement of constitutional order and insists that any disputes from the polls be resolved peacefully, transparently, and within legally recognized mechanisms. The statement also demands protection of citizens and foreign nationals, especially officials of the ECOWAS Election Observation Mission currently in Guinea-Bissau, whose safety and secure passage must be guaranteed. The Ghanaian government is urging the people of Guinea-Bissau to remain calm and avoid actions that could escalate tensions. The statement concludes by reaffirming Ghana's support for ECOWAS and the African Union in their coordinated response in line with regional commitments to democracy, good governance, and constitutional rule. For WEDR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Elsewhere, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu has declared a nationwide security emergency as armed attacks and mass abductions intensify in parts of the country. The measures include large-scale recruitment into the security forces and new deployment aimed at protecting schools, communities and religious centers. From Abuja, WDR's Usman Mar reports.
President Bola Tinubu says Nigeria is entering what he calls a national security emergency following repeated attacks across several northern states. In a statement on Wednesday, the president announced fresh recruitment into the armed forces, authorizing the police to add 20,000 new officers, raising its current intake to 50,000 and directing the military to expand its personnel strength. He said the additional manpower is expected to boost operations in hard-hit communities, noting that the police will use National Youth Service Corps camps as temporary training centers. Officers previously assigned to VIP protection duties are also to undergo accelerated training before deployments to frontline areas. The president further ordered the Department of State Services to immediately deploy trained forest guards and to recruit more personnel to confront armed groups hiding in Nigeria's vast forest belts. According to him, there will be no hiding places for agents of evil. End of quote. Tinubu praised recent joint operations that secured the release of 24 schoolgirls abducted in Kebbi State and 38 worshippers held in Kwara, assuring that efforts to rescue remaining hostages, including students kidnapped in Niger State, will continue. The Nigerian leader also urged the National Assembly to fast-track legislation, allowing willing states to establish their own police forces. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
In Togo, the Grace Kumai case continues to fuel intense tensions. The young activist's accusations of rape and inhumane treatment against law enforcement have deeply divided public opinion despite the National Gendarmerie's categorically denial. The reaction of certain political parties, including the CDPA, has further inflamed the debate. Let's join Gozinkoli for more.
The explanations given by the gendarmerie regarding the Grace Kumai case have not really convinced political parties or civil society. Member of Parliament Bridget Ajamago Johnson, who is the Secretary General of the CDPA party, says,
Madam Picoy is raising an issue of extreme gravity, a crime, specifically rape, allegedly committed in custody by individuals whose role is to protect citizens from such acts under normal circumstances. The prosecutor has taken up the case to uncover the truth. However, not only does this truth remain obscured, but efforts are also being made to intimidate and block progress towards its revelation.
The parliamentarian is calling for an independent investigation in order to restore trust.
In this case, the gendarmerie is one of the key players. An independent investigation is essential to shed light on what happened because this matter cannot simply be allowed to fade into oblivion. We demand to know the truth and to ensure that the law has been upheld.
Earlier this week, midwife and political activist Grace Kumai reiterated her accusations against the gendarmerie in a written message from her cell at Lomé Central Prison. Kumai says she was sexually assaulted and mistreated during her arrest last June by gendarmes, accusations that were rejected a few days ago by the National Gendarmerie.
That was a report by WDR Silva Wadrago in Lomé, voiced by Gozinkoli. In Niger, the Ivorian-Nigerian journalist Serge Maturin Adu has finally been sentenced to 2 years in prison. He was tried before the High Court of Niamey after 1 year in detention. More details with Christopher Ticho.
Serge Moktarin Ado has been found guilty of undermining state security. His name was mentioned by Burkinabe authorities in a suspected plot to destabilize the country in September 2024. He was later formally charged on November 11, 2024 for undermining state security. The journalist was subsequently transferred to the high security prison in Kotukali, located 50 kilometers from the capital. During his trial, the prosecution stated that Serge Moktarin Ado had collected a package from a person involved in the destabilization plot against Burkina Faso. The journalist denied the allegations and said he was a collateral victim. While the public prosecutor had requested a 20-year prison sentence, the judges ultimately sentenced him to 2 years in prison, granting him mitigating circumstances. Following the conviction of the Nigerian Ivorian journalist, the Ivorian authorities say they are closely monitoring the case and are multiplying efforts to obtain a pardon, or failing that, a reduction of the sentence. Authorities are working on a diplomatic intervention in favor of the journalists.
Christopher Ticho filed that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online at wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Major General Hota Ntaha declared the new head of state of Guinea-Bissau amidst call by opposition PAIGC for protest. President Tinubu declares national security emergency in Nigeria. In Togo, tensions mount of unresolved alleged harassment of popular activist Kumayi. And still ahead, Liberia's Senate and House simultaneously commenced 2026 budget hearings. We do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
We're streaming live at wadr.org and do full live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. We head over now to Liberia, where the Senate Chamber and the House of Representatives have initiated budget hearings for the fiscal year 2026. These hearings will review the proposed $1.2 billion national budget, the largest in Liberia's history. The House hearings serve as a platform for revenue-generating entities to present strategies for strengthening domestic resources, identifying new revenue streams, and preventing future budget shortfalls. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
The joint committees, both at the Senate and the House of Representatives, have identified the priority issues for the 2026 budget review, including the Aslamenta 200 million senator bonus, revenue projections by the Liberia Revenue Authority, and debt servicing and borrowing. They also plan to demand county-level revenue breakdowns and push for digital transparency tools for public tracking of budget flows. Mark Ajuri, Chairman, House Committee on Ways, Means and Finance, emphasized the importance of transparency and fiscal prudence throughout these hearings.
Our task is to interrogate the revenue assumptions that underpin this budget to ensure that they are not only realistic but also just. It is the details of the group and now commend our scrutiny.
Appearing before the committee, Liberia Revenue Authority Commissioner General James Dobojala reported that as of November 17, 2025, the LRA had collected $715.3 million in domestic revenue. He projected $1.4 billion in domestic revenue and $72 million in external resources for fiscal year 2026.
We are confident, based on our current performance trajectory and the reforms we are implementing, that we will meet and hopefully surpass our 2025 domestic revenue target.
The budget hearings are expected to continue in the coming days with appearances from additional government institutions. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
The International Monetary Fund, IMF, and Sierra Leone have reached a staff-level agreement on the first and second reviews of the country's Extended Credit Facility program. If approved, the fund's executive board, the agreement will unlock roughly $78.8 million in financial support for Sierra Leone. The deal follows a period of fiscal strain in 2024, marked by unplanned government spending, mainly on road construction and diminishing foreign reserves. But recent steps have improved the outlook. Sierra Leone is on track for a domestic primary surplus in 2025, and monetary policy has been adjusted, including a cut in the central bank's policy rate as inflation eases and economic stability begins to strengthen. Still, major challenges remain. The central bank's reserve remain low, and the authorities must now ramp up revenue mobilization, restrain spending, safeguard social programs, and accelerate structural reforms to ensure long-term fiscal and debt sustainability.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, we head back to our crowds to join Nadia Detective for the newspaper review.
Greetings. Welcome to the newspaper review segment. We'll start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Interest rates go down. Bank of Ghana cuts policy rates to 18%, brings back 14-day treasury bill. Other stories here. Parliament repeals COVID-19 Recovery Act, and China ready to support Ghana's development agenda. That's according to Ambassador Tong. And that should be it for the Daily Graphic newspaper. Now to the Ghanaian Times. Get fund to allocate 65 million Ghana cedis as lifeline for 9,000 special needs students. The That's according to the Education Minister. Also, Parliament scraps COVID-19 levy, and Child Rights International urges national policy to protect religious rights of students. The Daily Guide newspaper front page, court order sparks clash over Mandai seat. That should be it for the Daily Graphic newspaper. Now to the Chronicle newspaper. Baumia sweeps votes in Bryant's backyard, and Educhumul increase Ashanti votes. That's according to some delegates. The Daily Democrat, woman of women, a tribute to Nana Konedu Ajiman Rawlings. Also here, Education Minister outlines Mahama's special needs education agenda, and GRA foils smuggling and saves millions in revenue. The Overseer newspaper front page, Finance Minister hails policy rate cut to 18% is lowest since March 2022, and Parliament passes value added tax bill 2025. The Business Analyst is a final newspaper I have here. BOG hails fiscal discipline as deficit shrinks to 1.5% of GDP, and Bank of Ghana cuts policy rates to 18%, and Central Region poised for renewal. And over 2.5 million girls benefit from government sanitary pad initiative. That should be it for the newspaper review segment. Is back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Nadi there.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, in the last 24 hours, Guinea-Bissau has been thrown into political uncertainty with a military takeover. On the other hand, the opposition party PAIGC, excluded from the recent elections, has called for a nationwide protest against this military takeover, although no demonstrations have yet materialized. Regional bodies, including the African Union and ECOWAS, along with the Council of Elders, are actively engaged in the military, while international observers remain on the ground amid ongoing security concerns. With all of these ongoing, reactions are pouring in, with the latest from Ghana condemning the military action as unconstitutional, and experts are highlighting the need for institutional reform to ensure democracy can truly flourish in Guinea-Bissau. Well, our guest Festus Fifen, a public affairs analyst, explores the political, social and regional implications of this crisis and what it might mean for West Africa's democratic trajectory.
On your program on Saturday, and I remember saying then, coup or military government, military takeover is becoming a bit enticing in the sub-region. Africans are now becoming more proactive and more engaging as far as their governance is concerned. They need good governance. They need good representation. And if this one is coming from the military government, they don't care wherever that good governance is coming from. As far as whoever is leading them can ensure that some of the things they need are provided, they don't care. You will see, you would have noticed that between yesterday and today, if the people don't want the military government, there is a way you will see them protest. That for some people that are loyal to the candidate, the opposition candidate was disqualified, they will not take it that way. So most of the time when they come, the narrative is usually we want to stabilize the country before any other thing can happen. So that is just what we see.
There are currently discussions and negotiations with the military by ECOWAS leaders, AU and others. Do you see them actually reaching an agreement, and what do you think will play out in the coming days?
If the people are queuing behind the military, we have not forgotten what happened in Burkina Faso, where the people were even the ones telling the Traore that you continue, we want you, we want you, we want you. So if Mbalo is able to by his conduct, by his behavior, even while in detention, and his followers, if they are able to guarantee that dividend of democracy will be delivered to the people, I think the military will step back. As it is right now, it is for peace to return. ECOWAS, what they actually use is moral suasion, because at the end of the day, you realize that Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, they are already not in ECOWAS. They have joined the Sahel region. So it's also raising a question of what is actually the power of ECOWAS over member states.
So this then brings to the question that has ECOWAS lost grab of its ability to ensure democratic growth in the sub-region?
ECOWAS never had that ability. What ECOWAS was enjoying before now was the relative peace that was being enjoyed in the sub-region. Nothing really has actually challenged the competence or the ability of ECOWAS to bring people together. For example, they said peace is not the absence of war. It's your ability to control it. Now, ECOWAS, like I told you before now, what they mostly use is moral suasion. ECOWAS cannot decide. And don't forget the external influence that we still have in the sub-region. For the Francophone countries, their allegiance to France and some other countries is a problem. What does Africa supply to Africa? So because ECOWAS, the business, the trade, the volume of trade between these member countries is not to the extent US sanction will be able to affect one negatively. They are not providing something that you cannot get from another place. So ECOWAS does not have that bite as it is. It is only moral suasion that they are using. So until we get to the level where if you depend solely on Nigeria for energy, and Nigeria says that if you don't go back to democratic rule, we will not give you energy, and you know that you cannot get energy from somewhere else, you will now begin to reconsider. So what will ECOWAS be presenting as a bargaining chip on the table to force member states to do what they want? That is the problem. So ECOWAS will do what they will do, but the people that are directly affected by this governance will be the one that will take majority of the decisions.
Finally, before you take a leave of me, what will it take to end all forms of military interference in the country's democratic journey?
Democracy that affects the people. Democracy where the will of the people is what is enforced and enthroned. Not the democracy that the will of a few are forced down the throat of the majority. The only challenge that is making people to rebel, people are the ones calling for the military to. Military will naturally come out when there is civil unrest, when there is chaos everywhere.
Festus Finn is a public affairs analyst. In sport news, the Confederation of African Football CAF has officially kicked off the Total Energies CAF Africa Cup of Nations AFCON Morocco 2025 Diaspora Tour, a vibrant showcase designed to unite the continent and its global diaspora through the spirit of football. The tour is being celebrated as a powerful cultural movement, one that bridges Africa with its sons and daughters spread across the world. The tour will make 2 grand stops: London on 28th of November at Below the Lights, Piccadilly Circus, and Paris on the 4th of December. At the heart of this initiative is the majestic African trophy, whose presence symbolizes far more than symbolic silverware. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Mustafa Zek for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms: X, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at WDR English. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a repeat broadcast of our flagship environment program, Enviroscope. I am Imo Edit. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa